Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. We are really excited to have Mark here with us today. As always, my name is Matt Richling, Jody, and Mark. Welcome.
Yeah, great to be here, guys.
So let's just jump right into it. Can you just share a little bit about your journey in real estate and kind of how you became where you are today and what that looks like today?
Yeah, so I was a hockey player prior to real estate. So I played a couple of seasons over in Sweden and then down in the States in the Central League. I walked in one day and my stuff was in a garbage bag. So I was put on waivers, or in other words, I was cut from the team. Was recently married, flew back home, and was figuring out what I wanted to do. I always loved real estate investing. So I thought, what better way to learn about real estate investing, become an agent. So in 2007, jumped in, become an agent. And first 6 months struggled, maxed out her credit cards. Joanna came home one day. She's like, Mark, I couldn't, we don't have any money in the account. I couldn't afford milk today. So let's just say I was motivated at that beginning point. Picked up a book within that 6 months, picked up a book, Think and Grow Rich. He talks about setting goals. And so I did. And from that point on, that first year, set a goal of 40 sales, first full year, hit 38. Then we hired somebody, went to 100 sales, and we scaled the team up to a point where we were doing about 1,000 sales, just under 1,000. We were hitting the ceiling. And I was selling about 150 homes a year while leading the team. And I found that there was a ceiling that was being hit. We couldn't get past it. So there were two big questions that I really needed to figure out. One was, how do you break through a ceiling in a real estate business, right? Which is a really good question. And I didn't know the answer. And the second one was, okay, we're leading this company. I'm leading this company. What's a CEO scorecard? What should it look like? It was two really good questions. I didn't know, and I faced myself on that. I didn't know the answer. So that's where I transitioned out of selling. There was a stint there where I was trying to do it part-time. Only some clients, only some high-end clients, right? Certain price ranges. And I realized the split focus was not doing a good job, and I wasn't getting the answer to those two questions. So I did a full transition out, and I jumped into the whole scaling up methodology, Vern Harnish, scaling up, EOS Traction, Jim Collins, implementing, building in the leadership team, the strong frontline managers. And finally we broke through. And then during that time frame as well, we broke through the ceiling, went to 1,400, 1,700 sales. And then COVID hit. And then that's where we moved a lot of our operations online. We started looking at, okay, what does this look like if we were operate from Florida? We opened an office down in Florida. And when I was down there, I started seeing real estate deals. And we had been investing in real estate all the way along, single family office buildings, smaller multifamily stuff in Ontario, 6, 10, 14 units. And the deal stopped cash flowing, and rent control was a major issue. So I went down to Florida, and I thought to myself, wow, Canadians really need to get access to these deals. And what if we were to create something that could really service them and get high returns where, 5% distributions, 18.5 or 18+% returns on an annualized basis. If we could create that, that would be something really special. So then we launched Faris Capital, which brings us to today.
Do you find you're getting traction from the US, US investors, Canadian investors, agents? What does that makeup look like?
Yeah.
Tell us about Faris Capital, I guess.
After all of that, that's what you're leading with? After all of that? Mentions 100 books, 1,700 deals, and you... All right. Well, let's answer the question first. This is good. This is good.
Yeah, and it's fair. There's a lot there, and lots of struggle and heartbreaks along the way, which I kind of drifted through that. Didn't mention that, but yeah. So fair. What we do is we go and buy 100-unit plus apartment deals, 1980s or newer, and we'll go in and renovate them. We'll raise the capital for in Canada. And we'll go and renovate, and we'll sell those buildings within 2 to 5 years. 90% plus of our investors are Canadian, and the rest are American. But we just found there wasn't an option. So we structure it as a Canadian limited partnership, so our investors invest in that. So it's tax efficient. There's no headaches, and they get great returns. They get exposure. They get distributions. And we have a full-time team of 7 now working on that, and that's where I'm spending a lot of my time.
Amazing.
So I think where I want to go with this right off the bat is I want to have a conversation around a lot of your agents. So you've got a lot of experience working with a lot of different people and a lot of different agents in the business. What is your current real estate team setup? Really quickly, what does it look like?
Yeah, so we have about 50 agents and about 50 paid staff as well. So we have just over 100 team members. 80% of our agents were not licensed prior to coming on with us. So we found one of the big things that kind of differentiate us is that, we basically take agents that, no, there's a quick story. I mean, you can't train people. I'm going to skip the story and go right to the meat. You can't train people how to have a genuine love of people, right? So for us, we look at, do they have a genuine love of people? Are they willing to work hard, and are they willing to learn? And so when we find people like that, we love to be able to bring them on and train them from scratch, and they have the right mindset, and then we can train them into, being top producers. But yeah, 80% of them were not licensed.
So you mentioned really quickly what attracts you to them, right? But what attracts them to you?
Good one. Good question. Wow. So for us, the number one thing with us is that if we mess up, we take ownership of it. So reputation is really big. And generally people are like, you have a good reputation out there. That's just what they say. And the other thing, majority of the agents that come on were actually referrals from other agents on our team. And the big thing that people say within their team is the culture is really strong here. We're very big on 100-0, take 100% responsibility, zero excuses. People stand out when they start. There's a culture there, love, on fire, excellence, growth, innovation, and wow. Those are our values. So we're really big on those. We talk about them a lot. And when people align with us and they see somebody else that aligns, they're like, oh, you look like a Faris agent, or you act like a Faris agent, right? So we put a lot of time into making sure that, that culture is strong, and we attract the right people, and we tend to repel people that, they excuses and, complaining and negative. We find in the real estate industry, or in our team anyways, they don't last long, and they kind of, dissipate.
So, how do you foster that? You've got it really focused. How do you foster that? How do you build it?
Yeah. So the best ways are to create these core values, and everybody's heard of them before, right? But it's another thing to really build that into the culture. From having weekly shoutouts where the shoutout is aligned with one of the core values. Here's how they did it. Examples. We're really big on catching team members doing things that align with those values. Hey, that's a great job of excellence, right? Hey, you've really had growth over the last year, and finding specific examples and applauding and rewarding based on those values, but then also holding people accountable. Excellence is a value. We got to stamp everything. This went through to the client and it was not stamped. So we talk about values until I talk about them a lot. The leaders now, they've been empowered to be able to talk about them as well, and to breathe that in. That is probably the strongest way to do it. And then when we hire people, we filter through those. So if they don't align with those, it's very quick decision there for us. So that's kind of those are the main tactics that we use.
And right now, I think, compared to a couple of years ago, the market's very different. What motivation's a big part of having success. How do you keep that motivation with your agents right
now? Yeah. So I think what we found is the agents that constantly need to be motivated week after week. Generally, I find the best team member, the ones that do well, they're self-motivated. So I find then it just becomes a point of, get out of their way, but don't introduce things that are that hold them up. So we're big on getting feedback along the way and kind of removing barriers. That's a real goal there for us. Also, training is a big part of it as well, and keeping them trained and keeping the culture strong, and removing players that are we'll just say are not good for the overall culture. Like we move on that. We don't linger on team members that don't align with culture, which they respect that as well. And plus, obviously getting fed as in like providing, leads and appointments, like we book appointments for agents, especially through this market, it's become even more important that, we can provide, quality appointments. And then we give them a tool to be able to convert those appointments as well with presentations and scripting and whatnot, training.
Because this market is not dissimilar to the one you started in. If you go back and think about it, right?
Yeah.
You had a tough go in your early years, but if you'd started 2 years earlier, would have been a different story and a different origin story. But really, people that you're guiding through today, it's the same feelings. Different tech though, different business, different advertising, different attraction strategies. But what did you do back then when you said, oh, there isn't any money for milk anymore? I need a plan. And so, are you digging into those things and really, helping? Are you able to sort of remind people where you started and how it can go and where you can get to?
Yeah, Jody, and it's good that you actually reflected back, because I've said that now a few times with the agents is, guys, like, so back in like 2008, I mean, we didn't take as hard of a hit as the US did, but I mean, you had to work twice as hard. You had to put twice as many hours in to get the same result, right? And so that's where we just say, like, bottom line, you need to do twice as much. And if you're prepared for it, then you don't have that same barrier, right? That mental block of, oh man, it's taking so hard. It's like, no, this is the market. We got to work twice as hard. And that's your expectation. Then you're not going to be surprised that a client's going to take longer. So I think that's like I'd say that's a big one as well, with like communicating kind of the expectation as well. And then what else in regards to the overall market? I think that's probably the big one, is like setting the right expectation and just being willing to put in the work is a big one. Yeah.
So you're not saying be patient. You're saying be aggressive. You gotta power through this one.
Well, it's just the market. I mean, everybody sees the number of sales are at all-time low, right? Month after month after month. And the reality is there's less sales that go on, but there's business in that database, right? So, reaching out, having those meaningful conversations. I do think that a big part of this is like distraction, staying off the news. We talk a lot about that, like the negativity. One of the big things that got me through that early time, was like I shut down any negativity in the mindset. And for me, it was like there were people out there, I just needed to find them. I knew if I had 100 conversations by cold calling just off the street, I could book 2 appointments if I had 100. And so I think turning that off, as much as possible, staying off of social. Like the scrolling there's a lot of it is negative that's there. So if you have like a short window, 10, 15 minutes of getting back to messages, but staying off during those work hours, like write down on your list, okay, the mission is to have 10 conversations with past clients or potential buyers and sellers. And if you do that on an ongoing basis, I mean, you're going to get sales.
It's an easy market to be distracted, right? We were just talking about this earlier. Lawsuits in the States, insurance programs, what could, doomsday stuff in Canada. Do you have a team that you need to sort of remind and push through those things? And this isn't, you worry about today. You worry about what's in front of you. The next week matters, not 3 years from now. What could be different?
Well, so I want to interrupt his question to ask it. If I'm a sole agent, how do I focus? How do I stay away from that? Right. So less how do you do it from a team standpoint, but if I'm a sole agent, how am I right now going to kind of do what's needed?
Yeah. So if I'm a single agent right now, probably it's kind of the Brian Buffini approach of past clients referral is a big part of it, right? I'd be very careful of spending, because then you're competing with the larger teams that have bigger budgets. For me, that approach would be more focused towards past clients and referrals, where like if you go back in the last 12 months, where did you get your clients from? I would put like 80% of my time there. And I would double down on that, shut the phone down during the time frame, and just sit and just have meaningful conversations. And there are clients out there, that buyers and sellers, that are thinking about it, and you never know when you're going to catch them, but they want to be educated on what's happening, because there's a lot of fear out there. So if you don't speak with them and educate them as to where the market is today, and how that, I think this is one of the, we're going to look back in this in 5 years, I'm telling you, and we're going to say that was one of the best buying opportunities ever. You got developers now that are shutting down. They're not building, and supply and demand hasn't changed here. You got interest rates, the government's gone in and kind of, they're playing with it, but supply and demand's only going to get worse, and in favor with home prices going up. So to me, and housing costs have not gone, materials not gone down. So this is where, for me, you're going to look back now and see that. And so that conversation needs to happen with, people that are out there waiting. They're waiting to buy. And so that's really important. They need they need a light, a shining light, to guide them through this period right now. And I think that's where I'd be spending 80% of my time, if I'm a single agent, having meaningful conversations with buyers and sellers within my database, and double down there.
Educating your clients.
100%. Telling them like they don't know this is the best buy opportunity ever. This is like,
it doesn't feel like it. Sure.
Well, they feel like it's the worst. The media says bad things.
And go back to, so from 2007 till today, when I reflect back through that period, all the times that felt like today was screaming buy opportunities. I wish I would have bought everything. And so that's where right now that conversation needs to happen with people that are sitting on the sidelines, because if you don't, they're going to miss out. And so it becomes like this moral obligation to get out and tell people, because the news is not, it's all fear. And so those are the best times to buy, is when there's a lot of negativity out there.
I want to dig a little bit deeper into this, because I think there's a ton of value in here. And, we've seen it in this, we've been in this cycle before, and we've just been talking about it. And we've talked about kind of the conversations to be having and how we should be having relationships with our clients right now. But I'm an agent. Again, let's go back to I'm a sole agent. I wake up tomorrow and I wake up at 5 a.m. and I go to the gym now all of a sudden. Like, how do I make that mental shift? Like, how would you coach a sole agent to say, this is what you are struggling with, this is where you want to be? Like, how would you navigate that as a sole agent to get into like doing the right activities, right? Like, how do I shift out of the focus that I'm in right now and into the focus that I need to be in? Good. What does that look like to you?
Yeah, very good question, Matt. So first off, I think that the number one challenge that holds us up as from productivity is complexity. That is the number one thing. And so a confused mind where there's too much happening, you become docile. Like, how do you tame a lion? You hold the stool with 4 legs and they don't know which one's coming at them, and they don't do anything. It's the same with us. When we have all these things, we got to do this, we end up doing nothing. And so if we were just to simplify the process, we just need to find potential buyers and sellers to buy or sell a home. So that's it. So that's where, for me, I would remove the complexity and just say, I need to find somebody that's thinking about buying and selling. And when you then you can actually say, okay, how many firm sales? What is my goal? That's my very first thing. Going back to that book, Think and Grow Rich. Here's my goal. My goal is to do, let's just say, 24 sales in a year. Okay, well, based on that 24 sales, how many agreements do I need to sign? Well, you know what? Maybe you need 2 agreements for every one. Let's just be very conservative there. So then you need 48 agreements, right? And so, okay, 48 agreements. What's before that? Upstream, you got appointments. Well, maybe you need to go on 2 appointments to sign 1 agreement. Well, now you're at 96 appointments. You need to go on 96 appointments. And then how many conversations do I need to have? Maybe 10. So you got, 960 conversations you got to have throughout the year, and you break it down, and that's your goal. And so that's where I'd be focusing on, what do I have control over? I want to see what's down the road with my firm sale goal, but then what do I need to do today? And I would clear the deck And I would just focus on having those conversations on a daily basis.
You know, what's amazing is you're basically saying exactly what Rich Robbins told me 15 years ago. And you're about to go on stage at an event and say almost the same thing, probably. Like, what's old is new. Push out everything else.
You got it. Yeah, simple. I think just simple. And then, then it becomes a point of, okay, your soft skills of being able to convert that, because people, you need a bridge. Like as an agent, where our job is to be a bridge to get people from where they are to the Holy Land. And your job is to bring them over and be that guide. And I think that's where you can start working on your skills, but it all starts with having more conversations.
Would you, I think, and you kind of alluded to this without saying it, but I'm sure you're going to say it, more conversations consistently. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. I thought, yeah, you got it. And this is where then it gets into, okay, tactics. How do you make that happen? Well, before 9 o'clock, any of your paperwork, your stuff, research is all done before researching properties. And then generally like 7 o'clock, if you're calling people after 7, you got to have a good reason. That's my kind of cutoff. You're calling somebody at 7, hey, you want to, it's like, that's probably not good. So generally you want to push any of that paper stuff after 7 and before 9. And during that time frame, like you're hardcore, that's prime opportunity. And so you're either should be doing, having conversations, going on appointments and negotiating deals, right? And if you simplify that and clear the deck and just forget about everybody's telling you need to do this and that, just clear it, set a goal on a daily basis. And it's like, that becomes a must. And if you do that consistently, it's not that, real estate it's not easy. It's simple though, but it's easy to make it complicated. And I think we get caught up a lot comparing ourselves with other people, like, oh, they're doing this, I should be doing this. And then, you get so distracted, you're not doing your conversations. And we all have people in our database, right? Like probably people that are watching or listening to this, they'll be able to say, yeah, I probably have like a few hundred people in that database, but I haven't called them in a long time. And then what's going to happen is they're going to get distracted and they're not going to end up calling them. And then a year down the road, they're like, well, I don't have any sales. I went through a hard time. It's like, just clear the deck, call them, bring value to them. I'd say like educate them. Hey, listen, John, I was thinking about you. I hope, John, little Sally and the kids are doing great. I just want to give you a little bit of update where, and you can give them like board stats, right? Just to give you an idea. Here's what's going on. Here's my overall read on this. And here's where I think there's an opportunity. And there's blue ocean strategy. They may not be thinking about buying and selling, but if they buy an investment property, now you've just created another transaction if you can get them to jump in. So I think that there's spin-offs there, but it's got to be first and foremost, the mindset is not, I need to convert this person or I need to get this person to buy or sell. It's number one is I'm calling to like give you value and love on you. And then if there's any opportunity to be the bridge, then your job is you have a fiduciary duty to save them from, putting their money in, say, the stock market versus the one thing that drives 90% of millionaires' net worth is real estate. Like get them into real estate because that's the best thing for them.
This market can be really difficult and the business can be really difficult. In this industry, we can always do another hour of calls or another hour of this, or we can always do more. How do you navigate that work-life balance and knowing when is enough for that day? Like, how do you balance that? How do you help someone understand what that is?
Yeah. So this is, I got a really good tip from, her name is Paula Mitchell. So she was one of the chairmen when I was at Roll the Page. And she said, you know what, Mark, wise lady, she said, when I was younger, when like starting the business, she said that she started going home for dinner. So between like 4 and 6, she wouldn't book appointments for. And she said, I found that when I went home and I went back out after, like I didn't really miss much. And I thought, oh, that's really smart. So I started introducing that. And so I don't book appointments between that window. So I stack them before and after. Now, that the rule is I don't book in there. Of course, you might get the one-off, but that's the exception. but generally, or I may only get home for like 45 minutes or an hour, but if I can go home for that dinner slot and have that time together, I found that it's not so much about like quantity, it's about like quality. So we have 3 boys, right? So for us, I'm going home, my phone's away, and I'm like very intentional about that time connecting with them. And my other thing is like just telling the boys that I love them, right? I think we get kind of caught up sometimes about like, I need to spend like all day. It's like, they just want to know that you love them. So if you see them in the morning, you give them a hug and tell them, hey, Matthew, like, I love you. It's like every day. I think that's the kind of stuff that sticks. And that's been good for me anyways.
I remember listening to Buffini once talk about, I think it was with his daughter, and he had to do this thing, I think, where he would grab her by the head and talk to her. Like, he was very intentional about giving her the focus, because we all have that struggle where, this thing's attached to us and it's so easy to be distracted by it, let alone as a parent. So that's really key. Okay, so really quickly,
and they have their own devices, and then you have to fight your way through it.
Yeah, exactly.
So really quickly, let's keep this like 30-second answers. I'm a brand new agent. What would you tell me? I'm thinking about getting into this business. What the advice you'd give me?
I would say make sure that you get in the right company with aligned values, that you can really grow from the people that are there. Less about what's the split with the company, and interview some of the top agents, or interview like who your manager is. I think that's a massive. Who you're getting trained by, it's massive. And who are the other agents in that group that you can grow and learn from. I think environment is such a telltale sign with future success. So I'd be very intentional and not just fall into a place, is what I would suggest.
I'm now an experienced agent, so I've been around for maybe 5, 6, 7 years, so pre-COVID, but I'm struggling right now. What would you give me? Same, like I think there's been a ton of advice in this call already, personally, but how would if you had 30 seconds, what would you kind of say?
So I'd say everything that I just said about stay focused on the actions, and I would say turn off the negative news, because that is like toxic. I would turn that off, and I would start feeding my mind with, amazing, uplifting, positive. I'd work on my skills as well, converting skills, the presentation skills, like that stuff. That's a compounding effect. And I would stick with the basics, and I'd shut my phone off, my social during the day, and just have key slots after the 9 to 7, before or after. But during that time frame, like I'm focused on getting those conversations in.
Amazing. Yep. Thank you so much for joining us. We want to keep it nice and short and sweet. I appreciate your insights. How do people get a hold of you if they want to chat, learn more?
Yeah. So right now, we have a deal in Tampa right now. So if you go on fariscapitalpartners.com, there'll be some details there. I'll give you my contact information. Actually, I'll give you my cell, so you can actually share that. So if everybody just, if you can flip me a text or give me a call, that's fine. If there's any kind of, questions about what we're doing down in Florida with these apartment buildings. I think that would be the best way, fariscapitalpartners.com. And you can go on my Instagram page as well, Mark Faris, and you'll see some more tips come out on that as well.
That's amazing. Thanks so much, Mark. We appreciate your time, and have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, it was fun.
Thanks.